I guess everyone, welcome to the 34th AMA. And before we even go into the AMA, I'd just like to introduce myself. So my name's Taron Dillon. I'm marketing director for Kula. And I mean, gosh, I think we're literally almost touching, by the numbers you can probably see, we're touching in on 3 years since doing this AMA. And so while some of you might have met with Kula recently, some of you might have found out about us within the last 6 weeks of launch, we've actually been building for almost 4 years. And for those that are joining us for the first time, hello and welcome. You can see myself, Lance, and Paul, and you'll get to know us a bit more as the AMA goes on. But for those that have joined us before, you might have realized actually that you might see a few new faces. And so, whilst I pass it on to the guys, you'll get to learn a bit more about us, and you'll get to know kind of what's been going on beneath the hood, as it seems. Before I start with anything, it's always useful just to go a bit into kind of what Kula is, how we stand out, what exactly it is that we do. But please bear in mind that by no means is this any financial advice. Please, before investing in Kula's token or any token for that matter, please do your own due diligence. And if you'd like to read more about our policies and procedures, you can head over to our website. Right, so without further ado, remember, by the way, guys, this is an AMA. So if you do have any questions or you do have anything like that, please pop that in the chat. But yeah, quickly, just about Kula then. Lance, are you okay for me to just go into Kula, kind of a bit what it's about and what we do differently?
Yeah, go for it. I love every opportunity to hear the way different people describe it. So
Awesome.
we're ready to learn from you.
No, I don't know about that, but one thing I will say is Kula's uniquely positioned. We're actually we're quite, I guess, honored in a sense where we've actually have quite a large article base, and many of people might have been joining us that can hear terms such as real world assets, tokenization, and governance. The really cool thing about Kula is actually our founders, Chris, Micah, and Sam, were actually speaking about this 4 to 5 years ago. And so, in short, what they've now created and what the team's now been able to build out is a decentralized impact investment firm. This is something that brings in together two worlds. It brings in together the world of impact, social impact, making a difference literally on the ground where it matters in communities around the world, whether that's over in Africa, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in the UK, wherever it is, making a grassroots level impact and merging that actually with asset investment. It started off as a vision. Can you use blockchain? Can you use cryptography to actually make a difference around the world in with local communities? And so what Kula does now is it uses blockchain to actually protect the voices and provide asset investment into different assets around the world, whether that be a gold mine, a limestone mine, a hydropower project in Nepal, whether it be a timber project in Malaysia. And it uses the beautiful thing is that it actually then uses blockchain to provide both profit sharing and governance to the local communities that exist around these assets as well. But Lance, I'll pass it over to you. I know that you've got quite a few updates with us, and for those that probably joining us for maybe the 33rd time, you can explain a bit about why the founders haven't been able to join us today.
Yeah, well, my name's Lance, and right now I am part of the Ambassador Guild. Since I guess, last month and a half, it's crazy to think it's been a month and a half since we really got things going with the IEO. And since then, we just continue to build, and we are all over the place, um, bringing awareness to Kula. So we developed an ambassador guild, and so a couple weeks ago there was a team of us. We were up in Toronto for Consensus, which is one of the larger crypto events, where people are introduced. You see some of the original projects are represented. You see a lot of people with some great ideas and startups in the space. It's just a really great community. And it was fun, is what I'll say. I've been to some of these conferences in the past, and it was fun to have a real project, a launch project, just to show off to the community and to the world. And it was interesting as we all had countless conversations with people with questions about what was going on. But something that came up, there was kind of two aspects. One, people continue to say, why are you guys here? Because it sounds like you've already got something great. And it's like, yeah, we're here for awareness. It was fun being in a space where we didn't have a big ask from people. Um, and which that actually did lead to some great OTC token opportunities and conversations because that's really been one of our big focus of the founders and the team right now is selling over-the-counter tokens and just creating more and more volume in the space. But a consensus, another thing that I noticed is, we had this booth set up and there was this big on the banner behind us, it said decentralized impact. And that caught a lot of people's attention. I think probably half my conversation was dealing with people who were first skeptical about the word impact and what we were doing by impact, because I think when people talk about um, impact giving on any level, there's a lot of criticism and a lot of just uncertainty around that. And that is one thing I'm discovering that Kula is doing very, very well because we are not just looking for social and altruistic credits to just plug onto our project, but this idea of empowering local communities with governance and profit sharing, um, I think is a difference maker and something that really distinguishes us. So it was really great just to help showcase to the space and to the world what we've been building here at Kula. And then this last week, we had a team of people. I was with a couple of our founders, Chris Turner and Micah, and some of our directors. His Excellency Kamrat was there. We were in Kenya, and we had the opportunity to meet with some leaders and influencers um, across the East African space. And incredible opportunity, again, just to represent our company. And loads of conversations, early mornings, late night, but has really led to some great opportunities. That's why our founders aren't here. One thing that I'm just grateful for our leadership is they're playing very adaptable right now. A lot of things are coming up and they're making themselves available. So we were in Kenya with some meetings, but which led to Chris Turner, as we're speaking, he's in a meeting with the Ministry of Mining in Kenya. Micah, last minute, he had an opportunity he's in Dubai, meeting with some pretty ultra high net worth individuals, selling over the counter tokens. And then he's quick popping over to Abu Dhabi after that. And I believe Sam, we're Sam. I think he's in Taipei. Our family, our founders, they're all over the place. But the reason I highlight that is because they're working for you. They're working just to bring as much value to this token as possible.
Yeah, it's
I
great, Lance.
think that covers it. I used a lot of words in that. So
No, that was great. That was great, Lance. That was great.
yeah. Yeah. Paul, what's been going on in your world? I know we talk a lot about the external and what Cool is doing out there. What does your space look like?
Yeah, I'm on the inside, on the internal side of it. And so my name is Paul, and I am on our people development team. And so our job is to make sure that everything that's happening in the values and all that's being promoted and connected all on the outside, that's all reflected well on the inside. So I work with Sarah Jane on that, and so we really do focus on the internal side. And from the very beginning, when I first was coming on, the founders said, "Hey, we need to be a value-based company." And so those values are super important. And so those values are honor, learn, restore, and give. And it's like, okay, that sounds really good. And so we've been able to really dial in and say, okay, what does that look like on our teams? How do we ensure that our culture it's not just seen from the outside, but it's actually felt on the inside internally. And so that's been quite a process. And so there's been a lot of building. A lot of our time is spent. We've done quite a bit of writing and creating structures and that all reflect these values. And I think specifically in our hiring process, I know one of the big things is culture. And with us in having launched at this point, there's a number of positions in that we need to hire for. Well, if you look internally in that world, um, on the infrastructure of an organization, if you bring in a bunch of outside people that don't line up with those values, that really changes the culture of the organization. And so what we're trying to do is have pieces in place throughout our hiring process. And we've created with a data scientist a values-based assessment so we can actually objectively assess people who are coming on and see how they line up with the founder's values. And so that's those types of things are what's happening. And so with hiring, our we do multiple interviews with people. Well, one of those interviews is just focused on culture, values, fit. So I know I think it originated with the one of the operations persons at Google when they first started. But they're like, you can't teach values. You actually have to hire toward those values. And so we're trying our best in putting together not just the infrastructure that reflects our values, but then anyone who comes in that they have and possess at least to some level those values, so that we can make sure that we're aligning, and what we're doing externally is all happening internally as well. And so we take them very seriously, and it's this kind of great charge of like, hey, we never want to be something on the outside that we're not on the inside. And we take that to heart too with just the organizational structure. So that's actually
And
been really cool. I was out with probably 10 days ago now, a week and a half ago, I was out in Las Vegas with our development team, like our tech team, and we were just working on an all-day meeting to get things reorganized with roles and responsibilities, and to um, be able to get goals and our task list and our project list organized and all that kind of stuff. So um, we're working hard at all these different conferences and working hard at getting the word out. But I think it's pretty cool that there's a lot going on internally as well. And and I think it's pretty fun to be able to we're building things from the inside out. And and to me, I love the value alignment of that, and I like the integrity behind that. I feel like we can be trustworthy as an organization by staying true on both sides, if that makes sense. So
yeah, Paul, I think that this is good. This really speaks to, I think, one of the things that makes Kula a place I know I'm proud to be a part of is the fact I think it's unique that one of the earlier hires was a people development
mhm.
spot. You know what I mean? But our leaders, they're visionaries as well, and they saw like, hey, we're gonna have to expand, we're gonna have to grow. And while I think people development, that might be a spot that's not an immediate day one hire, for a lot of other people, but now it's really paid itself off, especially as we're such an international company. Paul, about how many
Yeah.
people are working with Kula right now?
Yeah, we're anywhere between 32 and 37 because we work with different contractors. So that would include employees and contractors. And it is it's a lot of times it's like, okay, people development, like what is that? And it's like, well, culture, values, hiring, systems and structures, um, and really just people. I think one of the things that I personally just with the founders and that we're entrusted with on our people development team is people, whether people are walking through difficulty, whether people are trying to grow and develop on their own. We use Clifton Strengths. That's always fun. Last week, I know Sam, one of the comments he said about our time when we were with the dev team was like, wow, I didn't realize, just how cohesive this group was and the different gifts and strengths that people bring. And so I think we're not just trying to create and build a value structure, but it reflects in valuing people in general. And just like we're trying to do on the outside, we're trying to honor and learn and restore and give. We're really trying to do that on our teams as well. And um, yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest signs. It's one of the things that is all happening behind the scenes as we're going out, right? And as we're launching, and as we've been able to kind of work internally on a lot of these things. So
I think as well, it's
Awesome.
incredibly. because there's a lot of people that, from a community perspective, might join and they see everything on the front end. You know, they might see the token, they might see the marketing, they'll engage with the AMA, but then there's always that reality actually that hey, this is an actual business, and with a
Yeah.
business comes staff, comes employees, comes processes, comes structure, task management. And
Hmm.
so, you know, it's great talking about, I know Lance kind of briefly touched upon the idea that, you know, Chris is liaising with the Ministry of Gold in, for example, Kenya, and we have all these different assets that we are open to discussing, and even OTC investments that we're currently opening. But hey, behind that actually sits a fully well-oiled machine that, you know, is the reality of Kula. And I think as well, that's also the from my perspective, I think the real cool and the quite the niche thing about Kula is hey, yeah, of course, we have our own token. We have our where we have a very strong Web3 front where we offer, you know, tokenization of a service. You know, we have all these different things. But then on the other side, actually, well, we have a really a strong Web2 component. And whilst we have a cryptos arm, we also have a, you know, a real world arm, as you can imagine, when we are working with regulators or we are
Hmm.
working with governments or we're working with legal frameworks. And behind that, as you can imagine, Paul, you mean your team plays an absolutely integral role. So I think yes, absolutely is really great with a great share.
Well, yeah, I know, and it's been fun to work on, and you had mentioned regulators. I know Micah and Paul Jackson. So Paul Jackson's the other Paul, and he's our chief compliance officer, and he and Micah right now are they're meeting face to face with regulators, and that's a really good sign. It just came up, and so again, Lance had spoken to this ability to be flexible and to kind of jump in when opportunities arise. And so they're there, and hopefully, all those things continue to move that ball forward. And when you think of regulators and, anything internal like that, there are so many processes and steps to walk through. And it's frustrating, for us as we watch it, and sometimes it's like, oh man, when is it? But we're just walking through their processes, and so we just need to continue to make sure that we're meeting the requirements and that we're clear communication is happening. And so that's one of the reasons Micah is not on here, is because he and Paul Jackson had an opportunity to meet. So that's what they're doing right now, which I think we're all grateful that they're doing that and not saying no to that to jump on here. And so there's
Yeah.
it's been, if there's one thing that happens on this team, it's everyone kind of doing whatever it takes to be able to move everything forward. And that's really cool to see from the founders all the way down. So
And
That,
I do
that's really good.
I do see,
Sorry.
yeah, sometimes I do think as well that I mean it goes to show the importance of face-to-face meetings. I mean even from mine and Chris's side, we were actually lucky to be at the AVAX summit. I think maybe just last week or the week before. And so for those that don't know, you know, AVAX is short for Avalanche, and that's the blockchain, the layer one that we're built upon. So we are a token that exists on their platform. And you know that was yeah we set off to the AVAX summit with a really clear kind of, you know, we're just going there to network. We're going there to meet the AVAX team, make meaningful connections. And so far, you know, to date, before that, we had quite strong connections with the AVAX team, particularly from Asia, but a point of contact from Sam's. And so a lot of the reason why we went to the summit was just to say, hey, you know, let's meet out the UK team, the US team, and build connections. And I mean, funnily enough, gents, I think within maybe 1.5 hours of actually being there, I think we met and sat with a lot of the, you know, the C-suite team. So that was really cool. It's a really good organic, and that was absolutely great. And I think for us, it just kind of made us realize, especially particularly at the summit as well. Honestly, we made the right decision to build an AVAX, and I think as well the types of projects, the institutional grade ecosystem, their forward thinking, their scalability, their meaningness to help, and everything. It kind of reinforced our kind of decision and the thought process actually on building an AVAX. So that to say, the AVAX summit in London was honestly for us was one a success, but also was a really good reinforcement factor to say that hey, you know, we built on the right blockchain, and you know they're supporting us with that. So um, that's absolutely great. I am just seeing the number of questions that are coming through, gents, and
Yeah.
there's quite a few. So I don't know, Lance, do you want to take a few or?
Here was my thought. As we jump into that, and I know a few we've been organically answering as we go. I did want to clarify, as our founders aren't here, yes, they are all diligently working on Kula, but they're also being intentional about bringing some other people to the space here, just because as we are growing, they want you to know who our team is and who we have working behind the scenes on that. So if you're wondering, hey, well, we never see, you know, Chris Turner's lovely face again, you will. But we're also going to be rotating some different individuals. But Taryn, I'm going to ask if you can take. There's a good handful of questions regarding um, tier ones, exchanges. Can you sort of talk about what is the process for getting on some of these exchanges and where are we at in that?
Yeah, so I can answer that from two sides. The typical process for listing on a tier one exchange is you have to, be active for at least a year, have sufficient trading volume and things like that. We've actually been fortunate enough to have been introduced through our own connections, through our partners, to a handful of tier one exchanges, and we are currently negotiating with a handful of tier one exchanges. Our exchange strategy isn't just a simple case of, hey, get onto the biggest and largest exchange straight away. There's actually a whole a marketing position, a community building position, and also a growth position that sits behind listing on exchanges that we are utilizing and we are being realistic to. And so, whilst, I think with us, as far as exchanges go, it's very intentional. We believe we're in a very strong position. We believe that everything so far as market sentiment goes, as far as token sentiment goes, as far as community sentiment goes, we have all the ducks in a row. Now it's just a case of deciding on what's best by the project, what's best by the community, and that then will fall into our exchange listing strategy. That I don't mean to be so roundabout. I don't want to mention any particular exchange names or anything like that because, as you can imagine, we need to be careful and we don't want to mislead anyone or mislead anyone in the community. But we are actively engaging with a handful of exchanges, and as soon as we have an update that we can share, by all means, we will share that as soon as we can.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's I know, Lance, a lot of what's happening is getting the word out, and you've been a part of a lot of those conversations, whether with investors or at different conferences or something like that. And so I know one of the questions has to do with there's the ambassadors and then the ambassador program that I think is
Mhm.
out there too. So could you speak, Lance, maybe to the ambassador side, and then maybe
Yeah,
I think you were on the program side.
yeah, that's good clarity. When I was mentioned, so we have an ambassador guild, which is an internal team that we are working on. We're positioning people really all over the world to be a point person in expressing Kula and representing Kula well um, to people. But yes, then there's the ambassador program. Taryn, you help build that. What's the future look like for those individuals?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one thing that I will say is that we always come up with these cool and fancy names, right? Ambassadors, and in our world, in Kula, we call it collaborators, funny enough. And we have then the community members who themselves started to call themselves the Kuladians, or Kuladian or Kuladians. But that to say, I think with regards to Joseph's question, he's referring most likely, I believe, to our ambassador program. How long it will last, we honestly it's more dependent on what the community asks for and how engaged the community is and what the needs of the project are. Um, if you are interested in joining or you'd like more further information, please join our Telegram chat. Ask our mods. They are the ones who manage the ambassador program, and they'll be able to give you the kind of the feel like the right stewardship for that as well.
Hmm.
That's good. There's a question here. What's one of the next important milestones for Kula? Um, you know, I'd invite both of you guys to speak into it because I think we all have our different focuses. So we all have kind of our own milestones that we want to see. I think a big one is our tier one exchanges. More and more exchanges. Every time we're going to step on a new exchange, that is another opportunity to create volume. I feel like I use the word bringing in volume all the time, but that really is crucial to the future of Kula and what we're doing, you know? So while we do have regional DAOs in place, ready to come active, ready just for some capital investment in some different places, we're going to continue to be strategic with as we release those. But before we do, um, we want to be open up on more platforms for more people to get involved with the space.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
And
Paul?
I can add to that on just the internal side as far as some milestones. One, the conversations that we're having quite a bit right now with the founders are just strategic hiring. There's a few different ways to look at your hiring strategy, and so we're finalizing that so that we're hiring. It's not that, hey, we may need a bunch of people, but how we do that and the order in which we hire people is really important. Um, and then two, there's a question here about the app as well. I know the app is being worked on, and there's some internal testing happening right now with the app. So I know that that's a huge milestone for us to be able to get that out and get that in the hands, further down the road here with regional DAOs. That's going to be a big part of helping that be successful.
Yeah, and I'd completely echo that, Paul. I mean, I think, the next milestones for me is, funnily enough, is probably an amalgamation of what you've both said. I mean, of course, on the marketing front, of course, it's tier one exchanges, it's larger community growth and marketing efforts. But then also there's a reality that sits actually, well, the reason why Kula was built on the blockchain in the first place is because we want token holders to participate in governance. And so the app is going to be, I think, a really interesting place because whilst you might have some investors who just purely care about, just putting in their value and pulling tokens out and making a smart investment, and that's fine for them. On the other hand, you have people that might want to, for example, have a bit more stewardship over their investment. And so they might want to participate in governance, participate in decision-making processes, and all these sorts of things. So I think for me, it's very much the application, it's the DAO app, it's getting that up and running to a point actually where it's functional, it's got really good processes, and it's a really streamlined way of people participating in Kula's ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's good. Darren, I'm gonna throw this at you again. Joseph, how bullish are you on Kula?
I mean, I don't. I love the term bullish, right? I think look, I think that there's a reality that sits with Kula, which is not speculative, and that comes back down to our value statement. One thing that I will say with Kula, in which it's quite unique in, is we purposely don't talk about price, and we purposely don't talk about whether we're bullish or we're bearish. Of course, we're building it, so we're going to have a personal perspective, and it's my own opinion.
Mhm.
What I will say, however, is, we have signed contracts. We have hydropower. We have two contracts out in Nepal with hydropower plants. We have government connections around the world. We have a Malaysia. We have a timber Malaysia project. We have a limestone concession in Zambia. So we're quite honored, and I think we're quite in a strong position to say that, hey, we are past proof of work. We have actual assets on the ground that we've invested into, and even if you head over actually to a certain part of our website, you can actually see what the valuation and this, our own valuation that we've put figures on, what that actually looks like. I think it comes out around of tokenized assets. It's circa maybe 45 to $50 million. And those are just the assets that we've tokenized. That's not just the assets that we own equity in. So that to say, I don't want to comment on whether I'm bullish or bearish. I don't think we're legally allowed to. But what I will say is I'm passionate about what Cool is building, and I'm incredibly proud to be part of the team.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great.
Yeah.
Um, since Lance, a different Lance asked this question, I feel like I should answer it. But talking about would it benefit Kula to work with or be closer to Trump media and what they're doing with crypto? And I think from our position, we're excited to see what the current U.S. administration is doing in the crypto space. They're validating, they're putting some framework up, and we're very supportive of that as we are also pioneers, and it's been a space for pioneers, pushing their way through. So What we are doing in our focus, so we have our marketing strategies, and some of that, and Taryn could perhaps elaborate on. And I'm less concerned about the strategies. I think what we're concerned about is we need to make ourselves undeniable for as we are opened up into these spaces. Right now, we are being intentional with the doors that we're knocking on and the doors that we're walking right through.
Yeah.
And so, like like as we spoke about where our founders are, um, all over the world at the moment, it's because we have some pretty incredible doors opening for us that we're walking through. And there may be a time where we need to knock a little harder on some, but we're going to walk through as we're able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a question on here just about like maybe the strategy or the approach on like going to the conventions and conferences. I guess leading up to the launch that maybe that was one strategy, and then at this point, like how does that look now? How does that look going forward post-launch? Would you, Lance or Taryn?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. I think it just honestly depends on the particular type of conference, who's going, who's attending, and for us, I think as a as a project, we base it around pretty much the conference and therefore the type of person or individual that we expect to be at that conference. So, as an example, we were lucky enough and we were fortunate enough to host the tokenization exploration stage at Consensus. And so whilst Kula sits in Web3, we attend Token 2049, we went to the AVAX summit, but you can imagine there's going to be an overlap actually with the traditional finance guys, the Web2 guys, because of our work in, Lance mentioned Kenya with gold mines, and Paul, you've obviously mentioned His Excellency, Mr. Masu. So we have that reality actually that sits well. We do work in the Web2 world. We work in traditional finance, and so that's where we go to consent. We went to Consensus, and we held a really meaningful event there. And as you can imagine, that's then opened us up to a whole ecosystem which isn't just directly aligned with Web3, isn't just directly aligned with crypto, but also it's the Web2 side. It's the traditional finance guys, and it's funny because you can see that in the type of people and what they wear at these conferences. At Token, it's normal to wear, your trainers and your a polo shirt and things like that. Whereas you go to Consensus, you're going to be wearing, a suit and a blazer and that whole thing. And there's that whole ecosystem that sits even behind these different conferences. I think as well, there are particular conferences, more the exclusive private events that we are fortunate enough to be invited to, that then also opens up regional DAO opportunities. So we meet, ministers of governments, we meet with private individuals who own assets around the world who have licenses for gold mines or whatever mine we're referring to here. And then we're open to discussing regional DAO opportunities with them as well. So whilst we have a quite a unique, I'd say, a strategy that sits around conferences, that sits around, that the marketing, the networking in person, we're also open to different opportunities because the reality is that in the Web3 world and in the Web2 world, we're meeting so many different people who are both interested in the technology. They're from the TradFi world. They want to understand how blockchain can enhance what they're doing already, but then also meeting individuals who completely get what we're building. And so we have an open mind when we go to these conferences because honestly, you just never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, and I think even more specifically to the question of will Kula be participating in conventions, consistently and constantly? I would say yes, but at different capacities. Like you said, depending on the need. At Consensus we had a full crew. I mean, we had a team. I know Token 2049 in Singapore, we're probably gonna have a couple team members there. We might not be a keynote on any of the stages. It just really depends, like you said, the need, the season, and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
Yep.
makes a ton of sense. I just there's a couple of questions about like you specifically, and so this is kind of fun. But like, what do you love about Kula? What excites you about the future? I think that might be a fun way to maybe close things out here. What
We'll let you
what
start,
is
Paul.
it?
Take it
Well, yeah,
away, Uncle Polly.
like I think one of the best things that I've really enjoyed is I didn't realize how much I would love building. helping build something. When you're when you're building something from the ground up, you get to ask the question of like, well, it may be done other ways like this, and it may be done like this over here, but how do we want to actually build it going forward? And I think to be able to have a voice in that and be able to see and do that with the team that's all just ultra focused on it. I think that's been really cool to build together. I would say has been a huge highlight. And I think as far as what I'm excited about, I really love the foundation that's been built, and I really love what the work that's been done. So it's kind of like building a good foundation on a house. Whatever you put on top of it, the walls, the floors, you could go 3, 4, 5 stories high because that foundation is solid. And so that's exciting to me as far as the potential of where Kula could be and grow. So,
Awesome.
Taryn,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah,
I think for me, it's been very much seeing how cool has actually progressed over the years has been incredibly exciting. I mentioned right at the start that Kula was talking about real world assets and tokenization and the importance of actually linking assets and real assets to governance and blockchain many years ago. And I think the exciting thing for me has been seeing how actually Kula's really innovated and pioneered along the way, both from a regulatory perspective, but then also from a building perspective. And we really, and I know, I laugh now because Samuel Chen, I think, he mentions this pretty much every AMA and he laughs, he does his little chuckle and he says that Kula's ahead of it's ahead of the curve. And to some degree, we really are. What started off as just natural resources and commodities has very quickly expanded. And now, we're talking about hydropower. We've spoken about timber projects. We've spoken about even, mining in different conventions and underground assets and all these different and wonderful things. And so what excites me for the future is very much a reality in which, behind these projects actually sits real communities, when we speak about the limestone mine, I know Lance is on the call. One of the first times I actually met Lance in person was over at the limestone mine in Zambia, and we actually to share a tent and we slept on the mine. And it's funny because 3 days later we found out that apparently there'd been sightings of hyenas. But putting that aside, I mean, it's funny because that's the reality behind Kula. There's a reality that sits behind actually our assets are real. The partners that we work with are real. And that's for me the really exciting thing. There's this whole process of actually, blockchain, crypto, that whole marketing space. But on the other side, there's real communities, real assets, and real people on the ground that we are working with. And that's for me is great. Lance.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of a similar sentiment, Taryn. What I get excited about just yet again is the impact that we get to have on real people and real places. It was just last Tuesday, we were sitting down while we were in Kenya. There was a government official. He's doing some work with us pretty high up in Kenya, and as we were talking to him about Kula, he goes, "This is interesting." And first started out a little skeptical. He goes, "People don't come in here um, wanting to invest in. It's what can I get out of Africa rather than invest in Africa in the terms of community. That's a different concept, and I get that people can be skeptical of it. And but what I love it's the natural overflow of what we're doing, and that gets me pumped up because first and foremost, we have to be good stewards of investors' funds and what we're doing and what we're investing in, and that's primary. But with our one of our first filters from stepping into a project of who's the local community that is impacted and what are some measurables on success and helping them grow and have a voice and profits sharing. And so like I love that we can be proud of what we do when it comes to impact with our dollars. I think the future is huge and bright for that space.
Yeah, that's great. We have just had another question coming in. So, since Kula is holding a steady and stable price, what doors do you think this opens for the future? Um, I'm sure, please, gents, if you want to add anything onto what I'm going to say, but I think what that definitely does show is, as far as exchanges are concerned, it really does put us in a very strong position. It shows that we have a community who um, is supportive. We have a community that believes in the long-term aspects of the project and what we're trying to build. And whilst, one thing I will say is in crypto and in any investment, just price alone doesn't necessarily show the success or the failure of a project. But however, this does put us in a favorable position as far as exchanges are concerned. But again, going back to what Lance has said, more important than price is probably the volume. We have sustained an average of more than $1 million of volume, trading volume since launch. And so that is incredibly helpful for when we are liaising with exchanges, particularly your larger ones.
Yeah. One more came up here, and we do have time. We don't want to go too long here, but it says when selling Kula to new individual OTC, what does that look like? And does that count towards volume needed, towards tier one requirements? I'm going to speak here, and if I'm out of pocket, Taryn, stop me on that. But essentially, our over-the-counter tokens is very similar to our pre-sale tokens when we were raising funds to launch the project. People who are purchasing over-the-counter, we have minimums on that, so it's large chunks of money. This is where the space now that we're stepping into inviting more institutional investors to be a part of what we were doing, because as we launched, it was all angel investors. But we're selling tokens at a slight discount, and then we're locking them up. So yes, it helps with volume. It helps the market. Not Taryn, can you speak any more on that?
Yeah,
I
I
don't want to
can.
talk too much about how the
Yeah, I can.
technicalities, if we can.
Yeah, so the actual nature of the OTC depends on how Cool is structuring the OTC. One thing that has been mentioned, and this isn't something which we want to publicly say, just because you can imagine each OTC deal is going to be structured slightly differently to suit both parties' needs. However,
Hmm.
one thing that we'll say, and this was echoed in the last AMA, is that a percentage of that OTC deal will be going on the chart, and that is to then reflect a benefit for the communities as well. So as
Yes.
yeah, so as a cooler token holder, you will benefit from an OTC in two ways. Yes, it will be present on the chart to some degree as a percentage value of the overarching and overall OTC value, but also knowing actually that those funds are then going to be used for the project. They'll be used to invest into assets. They'll be used to um, make meaningful connections on the ground and so forth. In terms of minimum value for OTCs, it's in $1 million. What's the lockup period? I'm not
That's where we stepped into, and I want to clarify. Um, each of our agreements might look slightly different, but there is a lockup period, and the degree to that is often dependent on the size of the investment.
correct.
So I would encourage you that anybody who is looking or interested in that and talking about what those discounts could look like, reach out to our team. We would love to chat with you.
Yeah, brilliant. And we have got one more question just come through on X Spaces as well. Just talking about, what are the, let me have a read. So, question about market cap. So, why does CoinGecko no longer show a market cap after they did for a few weeks? So, great question. So what this is actually is the verification of your supply figures. So with both CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap, they've showed our market cap and then it's been pulled. And the reason it's been pulled is because they are currently verifying the figures. Typically, what happens is when you're only on one exchange or even just two exchanges, your token trackers such as CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap, they don't actually verify it. You actually have to be listed on three exchanges for them to verify your supply figures, and that's then how they verify your market cap, and that's then how it gets shown on both CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap. That to say, we actually had a conversation directly with the CoinGecko team this morning. We are in conversations with CoinMarketCap as well, and we're hoping for a swift resolution on this. So thank you for your question.
It's great.
It's good.
But
You
gents,
know,
I think that's all
yeah,
on X.
that is. And so join us again, next month. There'll probably be some different faces. I expect our founders to possibly be back around. But Taryn, I just realized how grateful I am. Even when Mike is gone, um, we have a similar looking beard on this call. And so there's just a comfortability to that, which really brought a lot to this conversation. So
No, I appreciate that, Lance.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's been
Well,
great.
hey, check out our website. Thanks for being part of the community, and we'll be in touch. Taryn, what's the best ways to keep engaged?
Join us on X, on Telegram, and make sure that you're signed up to our mailing list as well. Often, if we have information that's going out for the first time, it's the people on our mailing list that are going to actually get it first. So
Mhm.
that's going to be something which is going to be incredibly important going forward.
And is that something that they would sign up on the website?
Yeah, absolutely. So head over to our website, sign up to our mailing list, and on there as well, you can see all our different social channels, ranging, from LinkedIn to X to Facebook to Telegram.
Fantastic. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, guys.